What do we know about money? Most of us think that to have more money, we need to earn more money. Most of us think like that. But honestly, this is fundamentally flawed. You might find this surprising, but today I'll tell you some amazing things about how money works. Most of us have been taught in our schools, colleges, how to earn money. We are designed, we are conditioned to aim towards earning more money. We are taught that we should excel in academics or whatever we are interested in because that would help us earn more money. The entire education system focuses on enabling us to earn more money. Hardly there's anything that teaches us about saving more money. What's the reality? So in a survey conducted, it was found that out of the total net worth that you have, 40% depends on how well you save money. So imagine if you have 1 crore rupees at retirement, whether you have 60 lakhs or 1 crore would actually depend not on how much you earned, but would depend on how well you saved. By saving well, you can increase your net worth by up to 40%. Now think of it. We spend all our student life, all our professional life in ensuring that our 60% of the corpus grows well. And that 60%, earning that 60% requires us to work 8 to 10 hours a day for 30, 40 years of our lives. And the rest 40%, that is comparatively easy. We can spend a few hours a month, maybe a couple of hours a month to ensure that our money grows on its own. And yet, for our entire lives, we are focused on that 60% and we neglect this 40%. So, it's not about how much you earn, how well you earn. How much money you have is actually about how well you save. There are examples of housemaids building a corpus of crores. Why? Because they were disciplined about saving money. And once you save money nicely, money starts to show its magic. Compounding starts to show its magic, and you find that suddenly, after a couple of decades, you have a corpus of crores, regardless of how much you were able to save, as long as you save it and you invest it intelligently. You must have noticed with your relatives, with your seniors, that no matter how much they grow in their careers, no matter how much their salary grows, they end up with the same amount of suffering. They are never financially comfortable. No matter how many increments they get, they somehow end up with the same amount of debt and EMIs, and they are still living hand to mouth. Most people, regardless of how much they grow in their career in terms of their compensation, monetary compensation, they are never comfortable in life. Why is that the case? Because most of the times, with every increase in our salary, we also increase our expenses. And your net worth is defined by, again, how much money you save, not by how much you earn and then spend. How much you are left with after the end of each of the month is what defines how rich you are. With every increment, there is a parallel increase in expenses as well, which is sort of never ending. Now, this might sound okay, but how do you get over it? There's a simple trick of getting over it. Pay yourself first. So, what do most of us do? We spend throughout the month, and if there's any surplus, we invest or park it in FD and things like that. A simple trick to maximize this is to pay yourself first. So instead of waiting for the entire month to see how much money you have left in your account before you decide to invest, the day you get salary, or you could decide a day, say 1st of every month, you invest a particular amount. That way, you are only left with a certain amount for expenses because you have already invested, and that would continue to increase your net worth. So pay yourself first and don't pay yourself what's left after the month. Your wealth will not be created on leftovers. Your wealth will be created on your discipline and the amount you decide to invest during the start of the month. When it comes to money, we often have the wrong role models. We look at how much cricketers earn, we look at how much Bollywood celebrities earn, and we think we want a lifestyle that matches theirs. But What we often don't see is how much the cricketer is left with after 20 years of his retirement. Most of these cricketers, they end up with virtually nothing. We read these stories about how a cricketer was going through a financial struggle and was driving a bus to make a living, how some Bollywood celebrities had to take loans, their house was mortgaged, and things like that. Why? It was not the case that they did not had enough money. It was a case wherein they could not manage that money the right way. So, it's not about how much you're making. It's about managing whatever you are making effectively. So, in terms of money, we often don't have the right role models. Who should be your role model? Someone like Ratan Tata, someone like Warren Buffett, someone like Mukesh Ambani. If you look at these people, Steve Jobs is another example. These four people, you would never find any sign of flamboyance. How they conduct themselves, the cars they use, the jewelry they are wearing. Mostly, there's no sign of flamboyance. They wear ordinary clothes, they walk around with ordinary gadgets, mostly modest cars and things like that. Because they understand that, they are rich not because they are buying expensive things. They are rich, they are amongst the richest in the world because they are not buying expensive things. So no matter how rich you are, money is never enough. And if you keep on spending it on luxuries or non-essentials, your earnings, trust me, will be inconsequential. You will still end up in misery. So it's about your change in mindset and clearly identifying what's essential and what's not essential. I think all of us are chief executive officers of our own money. We need to respect our money. We need to ensure that before spending money, we identify whether that is the best use of that money. As a student, I would often do that. If a pizza slice costed me 40 rupees, I would question myself if a 10 rupee dabeli would give me the same pleasure. And if I valued money that way, I would think that in my mind, 4 dabelis is equal to 1 pizza. What would I opt? And more often than not, I would end up eating 2 dabelis and save 20 rupees. It's as simple as that. If you keep thinking about your money that, I'm going to spend 50 rupees, what else can I buy for these 50 rupees? You'll make some brilliant money decisions. It's a simple mental model wherein before spending money, we think if this is the best use of our money. And it becomes a habit. It becomes a habit in your personal life, your professional life, and you end up saving more. Lastly, a very important concept. Time is money's biggest friend. If you give time to money, it will grow exponentially. This is called power of compounding, wherein if you keep money in an asset, if you invest money in an asset that defeats inflation or that gives you more returns than inflation, and if you keep the money parked in that asset class for say at least 2 decades, you will actually create huge wealth. So all these things that we hear about investing, what is investing? To define investing, it would be parking your money in an asset that defeats inflation. If you keep defeating inflation by 2%, 5% year after year, every year, you would see that in 20 years, you're amongst the richest in your family, in your neighborhood, within your friends, despite not earning as much as they do every month. Because you have consistently defeated inflation over 20 years and probably they have not. Which actually means 2 things: saving enough and investing enough. And second, not taking excessive risks to become rich quicker. Compounding would take time. Compounding will take 20 years to show you its result. In fact, if you think that I'm smarter than the person next door and what he creates, the amount of wealth he creates in 20 years, I know more about investing. I have a friend who knows more about stock market, mutual funds. I'll seek his guidance and I'll create that much wealth in 10 years. If you try to be extra smart with money, money would be your enemy. Why? Because you're not giving time to money. You're taking excessive risks. And instead of your money growing, your hard-earned capital will in fact start depleting. So it's important that you give time to money and not be impatient with it.